Here we are, one of my absolute favorite times. A brand new set has released for Pokemon Pocket, and I'm going to break down the new meta for all of you. I'm going to talk about decks that are doing well in tournaments, highlighting specific decks and players that are crushing it, as well as some fun cooks that we have made and things that we have seen in the community. It's always exciting, and of course, it is all brand new, so more will develop as we continue, and we don't have a ranked season for a while in Pocket, so I think we have a lot of time to collect cards and find other cool combinations. If you have stuff that you love, drop it in the comments. Everybody, here we go. The new meta, yeehaw to you and yours. Let's do this thing. I'm going to start with a lot of the newer decks that have been exciting, and we are also going to touch on some of the older decks that are still around and maybe have kind of one or two changes, but I want to start with a lot of newer decks first, then we're going to move on to a lot of older decks that are still doing very, very well. Before we hop into our first deck, I have to talk to you about today's sponsor. I'm so excited about it, and I've been saving it for this video. If you're someone who loves games like Pokemon, Octopath Traveler, Legend of Zelda, you will love today's sponsor, Alestral's Awakened. Alestral's Awakened is a 2.5D pixel art monster catching RPG on PC, and because they hit a huge goal on this Kickstarter, Nintendo Switch. Alestral's Awakened is set in a world inspired by Greek mythology where you bond with elemental spirits, challenge divines, and explore Titan temples packed with puzzles and secrets. And there are just a few days left in this campaign, so if you want to back it now. There is a link in my description in the pinned comment of this video. I highly encourage you do it. It is an awesome indie game developed by some YouTubers that you probably know, A-Drive and Shady Penguin. These guys are awesome. I love A-Drive personally. He's been a really nice guy to me through my content journey, so I was so excited to partner with them for this. I really, just like without none of the things, I really hope this does well, and I hope you guys take the time to check it out and back it, because I think it is a really cool project, and I'm very excited about it, and a little jealous, because I wish I was making something like that. So please check it out, back it, take a look at it, click the link here. I honestly think it is worth your time, and they're almost up to $1 million on this Kickstarter right away. I think this thing is going to be epic. Backing right now is the only way to obtain alpha and beta access and unlock some exclusive things. So if you're going to do it, now is the time. Check it out in the link below. Thank you to Alestral's Awakened. On to the new meta here in Pokemon Pocket. There are so many exciting decks right now in Pocket, and I think the best thing we can do is start with a lot of the megas, because there are some truly great mega Pokemon. Each one I feel like has its own niche that it's doing really well in. Some are super fast and aggressive like Blaziken, others are controlling matches in really exciting ways like Altaria, and then some are mega Pinsir. So let's go ahead and start with Blaziken. I think Blaziken is incredible and a great place to start here, and it has been the most popular deck in tournaments, and I think for good reason. I have a Blaziken video up on the channel, but I want to highlight one that did extremely well in the big Pocket Mads tournament this weekend. This is from a player named Shadow. This is Blaziken Entei, and you're going to see a lot of variations of Blaziken Entei. It's an extremely solid deck. The basic premise behind it is getting Entei in that active spot so you can draw through your deck, power up Mega Blaziken, get Mega Blaziken in the active spot as quickly as possible, and start doing some absurd damage. The amazing cards that Blaziken has at its disposal make it really powerful. Given that it's a stage 2, you are able to use things like Lily with it, which is incredible, so you can heal it a ton. It also, of course, being a fire card, allows you to use the new Flame Patch card. Flame Patch is just kind of disgusting. You attach fire energy from your discard pile to your active Pokemon. So if Entei is in the active spot and it has energy on it and it gets KO'd, that's some energy for Blaziken. If Blaziken attacks with its attack Mega Burning, that's some energy for Blaziken. If you retreat a card from that active spot, that's energy for Blaziken with Flame Patch. It's just an incredible setup. The rest of the deck has things like Cyrus, Mars, Sabrina, a Rocky Helmet, and an X Speed. It's interesting that this deck is running X Speed because At first, we were playing Blaziken the other day, and we actually ran into multiple moments where we were talking about possibly slotting X speed in. So it's kind of cool to see that a player did that and is having great results. This made it really deep in a tournament. I think I got like second or third in that big tournament. So if you're going to play a Blaziken, this is a great version of it. But there is another version of Blaziken that's also doing really well. This is from player HVK from that same tournament. This is Blaziken with a copy of the non-Mega Blaziken, so you can more easily deal with things like Oricorio, but also just deal with some threats on the other side. It does a ton of damage, and Cleffa. So the idea behind this is going through your deck a little more aggressively with Cleffa to get the Pokemon you need, and not worrying so much about Entei. Entei actually does some really cool things because it can do some damage as well, but this allows you to play multiple Blazikens, right? We have a Combusken in this deck, so we could fight with that. We have that base Blaziken that we talked about, so we could fight with that. And of course, 2 Megas, because once Blaziken is online, it is really, really hard to shut down. And of course, even if you do run into something like Oricorio, you are burning it. You have things like Rocky Helmet, so you actually can shut that Pokemon down as well, even if you're not as easily able to take care of it. Next, we need to talk about Mega Altaria, our next pack Mega, and this thing has been incredible. In fact, this was the best performing deck, this particular version of it, from that big tournament. This is Narumi's Altaria. It's Mega Altaria with 2 Chinglings, 2 Jirachis, and 1 of the new Sableyes. The new Sableye is actually really cool because you are able to do 70 damage for 2 energy. Obviously, we know exactly what we are targeting with that 70 damage. If you don't need that damage, it is hanging out on your bench. There are other versions of Altaria that I'll talk about here in a moment. This one does not have Indeedee or anything like that, or sort of the base Altaria that you see in some decks. This one is just focusing on Chingling being super annoying, Jirachi setting up huge plays, and then Altaria doing insane damage. You'll notice this deck also has a ton of control over your opponent's hand, right? It has multiple red cards, it has a Mars, it has a Copycat, and it has a Lycia, which is a really great card for pulling all of the basics you want to find in this deck, except one, that one being Sableye. So I really think this deck has a bit of everything, and I'm not surprised it has done so well in this tournament. The more I was playing with Altaria yesterday, the more I was recognizing, one, how powerful Altaria is, how good Chingling is, just as a super annoying Pokemon, shutting your opponents down, slowing them down, but also how powerful Jirachi is. Jirachi is incredible, just able to do that 30 damage to anyone on the board. It could be the active spot, could be the bench, and you set up huge plays because of that and allow you to take down the Mega Pokemon or the things that are about to become the Mega Pokemon on the other side. The other version of Altaria looks a little more like this. This is from a player named Kenry. They are running the Mega Altaria with base Altaria and Indeedee EX. Plus, this version has a Giratina. When I was playing with base Altaria and Indeedee, I was not running Giratina. I still had Chinglings in there, which I thought was also pretty good. But this is another powerful version of this deck. Indeedee EX is a really cool card. It can do a ton of damage to your opponents if they have a high retreat cost, but I think the most exciting thing about a card like this is its ability Watch Over, allowing you to heal 20 damage to your active Pokemon, whether that's Giratina or Mega Altaria or base Altaria. You just have a lot of options to keep a Pokemon very healthy. This deck is also really cool in that it has Red Card, Mars, Copycat, May, so a lot of like hand disruption and manipulation because you don't have any incredible draw yourself with things like Sylveon, Suicune. Copycat I find to be an incredible card early on, and then later you can really start messing with your opponent's hand with the Red Card and Mars. Personally, when I'm playing Altaria, I have noticed that I am almost always, unless our start is perfect and our opponents are really bricking, I am almost always giving up at least a point, oftentimes 2 points, before I'm finishing the match with Altaria. So I think Mars is just incredible in this deck. Next, let's talk a little bit about Mega Gyarados EX. Mega Gyarados EX is probably the worst of the 3 Megas just because it requires so much energy, right? The 3 pack Megas. I think 4 energy is a huge ask. However, once it gets online, it is incredibly incredibly powerful. This is a cool deck from a player called Next Time that they ran in this tournament. It has, of course, the new Magikarp, that Waterfall Evolution Magikarp, 2 of the Mega Garys, 1 of the base Gyaradoses from Genetic Apex, Mantike, a couple of Mantikes, a couple of Misties, Repel, May, Lucia. So this is really focusing on trying as hard as you can to get all of your Pokemon onto your bench so that you're able to choose one of them to evolve into Mega Gary, or possibly even that base Gary. One tricky thing you have to watch out for: if you are playing this Magikarp with Waterfall Evolution and you put it into the active spot to evolve, if you do have a copy of Mega and the other Gyarados in your deck, you are kind of 50-50 on which one it's going to swap into. So it's just something to be aware of. I think there are a few versions of Gyarados that are bouncing around, but this one had a really cool tournament finish, so I thought I would highlight it. Not surprised to see multiple copies of Misty. Not surprised to see things like Repel. May is a very cool card here, and again, depending on how you want to use certain things, you can use a card like May to pull certain Gyaradoses you want from your deck into your hand and guarantee that Mega Gyarados is what is pulled by Magikarp's Waterfall Evolution. So there are certain ways you can set that up as well. Also, I gotta shout this deck out because it has 2 inflatable boats, and that is exciting. The next Gyarados I want to take a look at is by a player named Imgem. This is actually very similar to the Gyarados that we built on the first day of this collection. It is using that base Suicune. It's got 100 HP, 70 damage with Cure Stream, and this deck is taking advantage of 2 heavy helmets, which is really powerful on Gyarados, allowing you to negate 20 damage from every attack as long as you have it on a Pokemon with 3 or more retreat cost, which Mega Gary does. This also leverages multiple Iridas, so you can get more healing, and it uses Manaphy, which is pretty good on Gyarados, but I think it's particularly good when you're trying to power Gyarados plus one other Pokemon. Gary and Suicune is what you're looking to do right here, and I think this is a great way to do that. We also have the deck we posted on our channel, which is pretty dang similar to this, but we didn't use the heavy helmets, which I do think are really incredible on Gyarados. Now we need to talk about Mega Absol. Mega Absol is actually really powerful, and I think a lot of people are underestimating how good this card is, especially when it's paired with a couple of really solid meta threats. We're going to start with a Hydreigon version of this. This is just great. We posted one on the channel the other day. I believe the player's name was Fire Dan that was running that deck in a tournament. This is from Jamesio. This is similar to what we were seeing, except instead of running Sylveon, they're running Cleffa. It has Mega Absol, but the important thing here is the Hydreigon. This thing is so strong, dude. It's like Rampardos. It feels like Rampardos, but even better, because yes, you take damage as you apply the energy to it, but you don't take damage on the KOs, and you take less. You can heal it after you apply energy if that's something that you were looking to do, but it's just so dang powerful. 130 for essentially 1 energy because you are generating the other 2 is really amazing. I love this card. It is so unbelievably strong, but it's not the only version of Absol that is doing well. This is a Mega Absol deck from Audi 1906 in the recent tournament. This is actually almost exactly the deck that we posted earlier today as I'm recording this, or maybe it was yesterday. This is Mega Absol, Pichu, so, like the days are blurring together, I apologize. This is Mega Absol with Pichu, Oricorio, and Darkrai. This is kind of a version of a Darkrai that we saw last season, just adding in that Mega Absol to sort of have an extra punch in this deck, while being able to power the Darkrai and Oricorio with the Pichu. A really solid deck that is in some ways reminiscent of the Darkrai from last season, and in other ways it feels like it has almost the decision-making and control of something like Darkrai Giratina, but of course you're aggressive in a different way, and you have multiple Oricorios, which is extremely relevant when you're running into all of these mega cards. For me, Absol does insanely well at 2 points in a game, and it's either like right at the start of a match where you have energy advantage, so it's like you're going second, you have Mega Absol in the active spot, and you can just sort of stop your opponents from using a lot of what they are trying to do, or it actually comes into play later in the match when you're taking away some of the most important cards that they are trying to win with. We haven't seen a ton of Greninja EX out there, and I have not got to make a deck with it myself. This is a deck from a player named TJ in the recent tournament, and this is about what I think a lot of us expected to see with a deck like this, which is that new Froakie in the deck, the old genetic Apex Greninja with a Greninja EX that can kind of flex in sort of a Suicune Greninja deck. This deck has Giratina as well. The cool thing about Greninja is you can take an active water Pokemon and switch it with a benched Pokemon, so Suicune in the active spot doesn't need to worry at all about retreat costs. In fact, that means there are often times where you could power your bench in some different ways, bring them in while Suicune helps you draw through your deck. This is kind of, I think, what we expected a little bit from Greninja EX, and I'm excited to see if a version of this deck pops up that is more focused on the Greninja itself, but old Greninja is just kind of better in some ways. Like Water Shuriken is just an incredibly broken move, so we will have to see if this one has more value than kind of what it's doing right now, which is good damage. I mean, 100 for 2 isn't terrible, and it also allows you to play it or not play it depending on the situation in front of you. Next, I want to talk about Jolteon EX, probably the most hilarious card and one of my favorite things in this entire set. First off, the new Eevee in this set is gross. Well, we could show the deck that I posted the other day here for a second, and then I'll show a deck that did well in a tournament. I just love Jolteon EX. It is so funny. It is so mean. If you get that new Eevee in the active spot and Jolteon, like right away, turn 1, you just have the, like, it's pure joy. Watching your opponent power all of their cards and take damage the entire time is hilarious. I absolutely love it. Let's go ahead and take a look at a deck here. This is from a player named Thunder Guy that did well in a tournament recently. This was from the Chaos League Pocket Saturday. This is 2 of the new Eevees, a couple of the Jolteons. This is Zeraora, Oricorio, and Pikachu EX. Obviously, the Pikachu EX is there so that you can clean up some of the crazier fights that you will get into with a deck like this. Sometimes you just need that huge pop of damage, and you're not really able to get it done without something that can swing for a huge amount like that 150. So that's why we're seeing it in this deck. The rest of the stuff here, of course, multiple copies of Elemental Switch. We have Red, Cyrus, the new May card, which is really incredible, especially for these Eevees. If you get one of these Eevees and you're able to use May and make sure that you can grab that Jolteon early, that is incredibly powerful. Or even grab some early Zeraoras because of how dang good it is to have them on turn 1. Staying with lightning decks, let's move on to Mega Ampharos. This is another one of those cards that I really want to build some decks around. This is a deck from Z-Dog 999999 from the recent big Mads tournament, and I do think Oricorio is almost necessary when you're running a lightning deck, so I'm not surprised to see something like Ampharos Oricorio have one of the stronger showings for a Ampharos deck in the entire tournament. I think you're going to see that on most all of them. It gives you time to set something like Mega Ampharos up and shuts down some decks on the other side in some pretty annoying ways. Ampharos doesn't look like it's having the results that some of the other decks are, which is unfortunate as a huge Ampharos fan, but I understand it only being able to do 100 damage with its energy. There are also versions of this deck where you are seeing the energy generation faster. People are running Pichu, people are running things like Zeraora to get the energy on Ampharos quicker, which I do think is also very viable. This is a cool version of that from a player named Kemi VGC, or yeah, Kemi VGC 420, represent, dude. Mareep, Mega Ampharos. This has Pichu and Oricorio and Cleffa, just so you're able to generate that energy a little faster as well. So again, still opportunities to find the cards you need with Cleffa, or if you've kind of got what you need and you want to start kind of getting aggressive, you have that Pichu as well here. Next, I want to talk about Mega Pinsir. We actually played a few different versions of Mega Pinsir on stream that I think did pretty well. Leafeon EX and Mega Pinsir feel like a great combination. And then from there, you're able to kind of make a few decisions. So the nice thing about the new Eevee into Leafeon EX is the immediate generation of grass energy. And if you can get Mega Pinsir online quickly, you are able to take down really powerful things on the other side. And with a guaranteed 150, if you're running Will, Will in your deck, which you absolutely are, you can do some seriously incredible stuff. We also ran a version of this with a base Leafeon. We ran a version of this with a Celebi, the Celebi that kind of de-evolves them and then does some damage, which is really hilarious. I think there are a few different ways to run this. I do want to highlight one that got pretty deep into a tournament that I was excited to see. This is from a player named Akuma. They are running Pichu, Oricorio, Alolan Executor with Execute, and Mega Pinsir. One copy of the Mega Pinsir, but they're doing a ton of work with Alolan Executor, with Will, with Pichu, and Oricorio. It's weird because this feels like almost Mega Pinsir's version of the Mega Absol Darkrai deck, just kind of like in a different way. And I think it's exciting to see something like this do well. Obviously, Tropical Hammer does so much damage, and when you look at Alolan Executor and Mega Pinsir, like Alolan Executor, yes, it's a stage 1, but it only requires a single grass energy to colorless, and with Will, it is guaranteed to do the same amount of damage as Mega Pinsir, which is pretty incredible. Super fun deck. Shout out to Akuma for running this. Next, I have to talk about a deck that I'm so excited to see out there, and that is the new Luxray deck. So this is running a copy of the old Luxray, the Luxray that's able to do 120 damage to any Pokemon, could be a bench, could be an active Pokemon, and the new Luxray, which is able to do 110 damage with Flash Impact. This has a couple of Oricorios, this has Zeraora, I don't know if I just said it, this is run by a player named Krypton, sorry if I didn't, and I apologize if I did. You know what? Apologies all around. The cool thing about this deck, obviously, is your ability to flex into which Luxray you need for the moment, and with so much energy generation in Lightning decks right now, you can get Oricorio online very quickly, you can be attacking with Zeraora. If you get your Luxray, you are doing insane damage, and 120 damage to a bench Pokemon can set up a lot of situations where even if your opponents decide to leave, they're not really getting away. And if their Mega gets in the active spot and you can deal a little damage with something like Oricorio or the newer Luxray, the old Luxray can finish it off even if they try to run away. Now on to some older decks that are still doing really well. We're going to start with Suicune Greninja. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it was around for a little bit. Still a very powerful deck. There have been versions of this without Oricorio, versions of this with the new Greninja EX, but I think this is a really strong version of it. This is from a player named Mega Bean that brought it into this recent tournament. It really doesn't have anything new inside of it. I mean, everything is something that was in the previous set, but it's incredibly powerful still. Powering Giratina on the bench, getting your Greninjas early, allowing you to move around and deal some damage to your opponents. The interesting version of this has 2 Iridas in it, which is a little different from some of the others that we've seen. And with no lightning energy, you're really just using this Oricorio to stall your opponents out, which is one of the first versions of this I feel like we saw in Secluded Springs, was using this Oricorio to give you time to power Giratina and find your Greninjas. Still an incredibly powerful deck. It turns out now, somehow, even this water deck forces players not to shower. Ironic, I know. Next, I want to talk about Silvally, which is still doing very well. So Silvally Oricorio, and look, anything with Oricorio does pretty dang good. It's a really powerful card. This was run by a player named Pocket News, which I have to assume has Pocket News. This is 2 type nulls, 2 Silvallis, 2 Oricorios, and a ton of supporters that work really well for this. It's using the new Copycat card, which I do think is pretty cool. And in general, Silvally Oricorio is just, they're 2 really amazing cards that are pretty dang broken, and they make it hard for your opponents. Silvally does an insane amount of damage, and Oricorio won't let certain things attack. So mean and still so relevant. Next, I want to talk about a Suicune Oricorio Greninja deck. This is just kind of a variation of the Suicune Giratina Greninja Oricorio, just without the Giratina, which in some situations you don't need. This particular version went 10-3 in the tournament run by a player, I think it's E-Museum. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but again, Greninja, Suicune, Oricorio, really not going anywhere and incredibly powerful cards. Next, I want to talk about one of the elemental beasts or elemental dogs that are still around. Did I say elemental beasts when I meant legendary beasts or legendary dogs? Either way, I want to talk about Raikou. So this Raikou deck is Raikou EX, Oricorio, Zeraora, and a Pikachu EX. Something like this was popular in the last set. This has a few things going on with it that feel a little new, like Pocket has May in this deck. This is run by a player named Juglife. Whoop Whoop, I think is what we're going for here. This is still a good deck. Things with Oricorio are still powerful. Raikou can still do something well, and it did pretty well in the tournament, going 9-3, so still a relevant card. In fact, all of the legendary dogs are still relevant. We have Suicune still doing Suicune things, Entei is hanging out with Blaziken now, and Raikou is still making waves, or making electric waves in lightning decks. Now, of course, there are decks I have not talked about, lots of things still to be discovered, stuff that I'm really excited to play. I want to play around with everything in this set. It's just, there's only so much time and only so many videos. I said so many videos you can post in a day. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope this was entertaining. I hope it was informational. I hope you check out our sponsor, Alestrals. Again, I've been saving this sponsorship for this particular video because I know a lot of you guys like to check out kind of a breakdown like this, so I hope you check out Alestrals. Shout out to them. Did I say Alestrials when I meant Alestrals? Either way, we did it. Thank you all. I love you. I will see you all next time. Big stream tomorrow. We did it. Oh boy, did we.